Eddie Murphy's on the swings, and she's like, Akeem, loosen up. And he's like, I can do it. Welcome to World's Greatest Dad Pod, Brian Stelter. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. This is going to be the easiest part of my day, probably.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
I would say that's completely accurate, and the opposite for us, because I just want to say thank you for literally, sincerely, I mean this, gracing us with your presence. You are a fascinating person. You're a true professional, and you know, Neil was very smart. He's the smart guy, so he was like, listen, go through his Instagram, you'll get a vibe of this guy. We've never had anyone who wears suits. You are like, it's epic. And you know what? It's fine that you're not wearing a suit now. It actually makes it easier for me because, like, I'm nervous. I'm starstruck.
Okay.
And the funny thing is it's not even the real stuff you do, but I love the freaking Apple show. I love it, dude.
Thank you.
Morning show?
Yes.
Which is based on actual real journalism and reporting.
Crazy. I know.
That's the other easiest part of my life is consulting for the morning show. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the reason you're here, of course, which we're going to get to, which is going to be the meat of this, is the fact that you're the world's greatest dad. And
correct.
You know, just so you know, everyone who comes on this show is the world's greatest dad. So it is both an accomplishment and also a very common moniker around here. But congratulations on being.
And do I get a plaque or is it more of a medal? What sort of thing am I expecting?
We'll we're working on the merch.
I gotta say, you really own the title like you were expecting the other. You know, he was looking for hardware. I mean, you've never had a dad just be like, but where's the hardware? He's looking.
We've had guest tests for T-shirts, which we still have to have printed.
T-shirts.
Yeah. I think, why don't we start at T-shirts and then we can work our way up to medals?
That's probably smart.
Maybe.
Brian Stelter, you are a very accomplished journalist. Ali Khan's going to go into your official background in a moment, but the reason you're here is because you have kids and you're the world's greatest dad. And the reason I reached out, of course, we've been following your career for many years because we're both in media, or what was media at one point. You know, I don't know what we do now. But we saw your viral moment where your kid walked in on an interview and it was adorable and lovely. And before we get into any of the other stuff, can you talk about that and just like kind of the intersection of your very professional reporting career and then just being a dad? Because clearly you're at home now.
I'm glad that people thought it was an adorable moment because for me it was a little bit traumatic. I was on CNN talking about very heavy topics. One of them related to Jeffrey Epstein. And all of a sudden, my 6-year-old slides into the camera, you know, like he was always supposed to be there. And somehow I held it together. Somehow I didn't acknowledge him till the end of the end of the show, when the anchor very thoughtfully brought it up. But it was a typical dad situation, I guess, to the extent that I have a typical job. I was on CNN at like 7:30 or 7:45 p.m. on a Sunday night. It was supposed to be bedtime for my kids. So I basically told them, you know, I've got 5 minutes. I'm going to be on TV for 5 minutes max, probably only 4 minutes. Give me 4 minutes, you know. And normally they don't care about what I do, and they are not at all interested in TV. But every once in a while, one of them just gets it in their head to try to sneak onto TV. And that's what happened.
Yeah. Well, Brian Stelter, I worry that we're going to get too far into this without telling everyone how important this interview is. You know, the gravitas. And I just want to be clear. So far, we've had an MMA fighter. We've had lots of comedians, lots of chefs. We did have a guy who wrote a book about fatherhood, and I think he went to Yale. So, you know, you guys might rival each other, but he's not on TV. So, Ali Khan, do the honors. Tell everybody who our guest is today.
Yeah, here we go.
I finally met the last two people in the world impressed by television. This is exciting.
Yeah, and two guys who used to work in TV, so yeah, that's pretty much.
Shows our age.
Ain't that the truth? All right, here we go. Brian Stelter is the chief media analyst for CNN Worldwide and the lead author of the Reliable Sources newsletter. He is the author of 3 books, most recently Network of Lies, which examined Dominion's landmark defamation case against Fox News. In 2013, he published the New York Times bestseller Top of the Morning, Inside the Cutthroat World of Morning TV, exploring the fiercely competitive world of morning news shows. He also serves as a producer on the Apple TV series The Morning Show, which is inspired by the book, and I am a fan of that show. Stelter is a recipient of the Walter Cronkite Award for Excellence in Television Political Journalism and a 2-time recipient of the Bart Richards Award for Media Criticism. But his most important role is dad to Story, who's 6 in first grade, and Sonny, who is 8 and in third grade. Brian, welcome to World's Greatest Dad. I'm sorry we don't have the award, the plaque. Or maybe you'd like more of a sports trophy. As I peep through your IG, I feel like, do you live in Philly? Are you a Philly guy?
I'm in the middle of nowhere in New Jersey, which
Okay.
is really a big part of the dad story, to be honest. And my wife grew up in Philly and is a diehard Eagles fan, so that explains all the sports posts.
Literally, my wife is from Philly, so I married into the life.
Yes,
I married into
I
the
did
life.
too. That's right.
Amazing.
I married into the life, and this year, instead of taking her on, some winter getaway, we usually go away in February, try to get away from the beautiful children for a few days. We went to the Super Bowl instead. So, that explains that summarizes the fandom perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it was quite the showing too. So
Now, do you want me to tell you what you left out of my bio?
Yeah.
Sure.
What we missed?
Yeah.
Here's the unofficial version, okay?
Okay.
Newspaper kid, never thought he'd be on TV. Somehow got hired at CNN. Met a pretty girl. Got married. We struggled to have babies for a while. We did all the IVF. Then I have 2 kids. We're in the teeth of the first Trump administration. All of a sudden, my show on CNN is kind of noisy and loud. Had a lot of fun doing it. Got fired from CNN. Had to become a stay-at-home dad, and now I'm back at CNN. Now I'm back on air. But I think that chunk of time, being on the sidelines and having to figure out who I was as a dad, is why I'm up for this obviously very cherished, treasured award. So there we go. I filled in the blanks for you.
This is the best part about it because, no matter whatever frankly awesome job we have, there's one job that stays with us forever. Once we sign up, you can't get fired from, which is being a dad. And I very much can relate to, I've definitely been in the stay-at-home dad phase. I mean, not exactly by plan. It's actively working around it, but
Yeah.
I picked up a lot of that stuff, and I've actually found the last few years, like, it happened to be at the very beginning, like when my son was 1, and now in the last couple of years, I feel like I'm picking him up a lot after school and stuff. My wife, we do split a lot of stuff, but I love it. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just, at some point, it's like it just holds on. It's something to hold on to, So,
Yeah,
amen.
and because of that phase for me, everything now, whether it's going back to CNN, being back on air, thinking about other projects in my life, now it all revolves around the kids as opposed to my career revolving, and the kids kind of being an addition, right, or being an add-on. And so I'm really grateful for that change of perspective.
Well, and how, I'm curious, like, because, when your kids were born, when they were first born, obviously you wanted to be an involved dad, a good dad, the greatest dad, but how did your perspective shift? I mean, what was the frame of mind when your kids were really little and you were climbing in your career versus, when you got let go? I mean, obviously you're able to kind of look back in hindsight, but I mean, what was the difference? Like, what were you like as a parent then versus now?
When I look back at the photos from the earlier years, I feel better about how it went because when I think back in my head, I look back with not regret, but a little bit of feeling of I didn't know the role, or I didn't. And I mean, nobody does when they get started, right? When you're beginning, but I didn't necessarily know how to fit into a situation where the mom's role is much more clear, where we're living in the city and we're both working full-time jobs, so the nanny's role is really clear, and figuring out who I was in that mix, I think took me a little while. I was also way too overwhelmed with work, and in retrospect, going way too fast. And so I now I look back at the pictures and I think, oh wow, good, I was there for all those moments. I barely remember any of it. But one of the best things that my wife does every year is prints out a book of our Instagrams, kind of like creates a family album every year from our Instagrams. And seriously, when I look at those photos, every time I feel better about how I've come so far through this, because otherwise, we have 2 kids. We have no plans to have more kids. I am in a mode of life where I look backward as well as forward. I want to, look, my son's 6 years old. I'm never going to have a first grader again, right? Most likely. So I'm trying to really enjoy every second of it. And I didn't have that attitude when they were 1 or 2 years old. I didn't have that same grasp on things when they were really young. I loved taking them to Central Park. I have those memories that are core memories that are really valuable, but I didn't have that same sense of making every day count. And let's be honest, when they're that young, they're not remembering it either. So it's a very different dynamic than it is now.
Is that something, like, how does that manifest though? Like, I get that you recognize it, but have you made like concessions with work? Do you ever kind of say, you know what, I'm gonna maybe, I don't know, take the vacation or even say no to work when it happens? Because in this business, it's hard to say no, right?
Being at home is the big difference. And I'll tell you the 1 minute kind of funny, crazy story about it. We used to live in the city right by CNN. It was my wife's idea, even before the babies were born, to move right across the street because she realized I was going back and forth all day long doing live shots in the pre-Zoom era, the pre-work from home era. I was always on set in the studio, and I used to have a Sunday morning show, so I was always there. And it was a great idea at the time. Live right by the office, live right by Central Park. It was really ideal. It was also really expensive. And so as the kids got older, we thought about kindergarten. We had bought this weekend house out in New Jersey. We thought it was a vacation house. We thought it was just for the weekends. We started to realize we liked it a lot more than the city. And so in 2022, we were moving out of the city. We were stopping the city rent payments finally. We were going to, we had chosen the public school path for our kids. And on the same day the moving truck was about to come, that's when I got canceled at CNN. And that's when I was told that my services were no longer needed. And it was the perfect timing because my life was already changing. I was already blowing everything up. I'm moving to the suburbs, and I thought I was going to need an au pair. We had hired an au pair. She had landed from Australia. On the plane, she read a news story about me being fired. And she wondered, because just for like a few hours, it was national news. And she wondered, is she still going to have a job? And she did. We were thrilled she was there. We thought we were going to need her. But after 2 weeks, she got homesick. She needed to go home. And I realized I can do this. Like I don't need that full-time childcare anymore. I'm not going to be going to the city every day. I'm not going to be on CNN anymore. I can just slow down for the first time in 20 years, probably the only time I'll ever slow down, and just enjoy this and just be dad. So having that moment of we're leaving the city, we're going to try the suburbs, we're going to see if it works. There was so much unknown in that moment, and in retrospect, that has laid out everything since. So now, 2 years later, there was a chance to come back to CNN. There was a different role. Now I'm an analyst, not a correspondent. Now I'm not hosting a show. I'm on everybody else's shows. And it's a different pace. It's different. It's a different speed of a job. And I talked to the bosses at the time about how I live far from the office now. I live far from the studio. The best thing to do to really make this work is to have me live from home, at least a lot of the time. and most viewers can't tell unless my 6-year-old sneaks into the shot. You would have no idea that I was at home. But that's what makes it work. You know, that's why I'm able to be on at midnight or 7 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon. It's because of the home studio. And to me, that's also a symbol of making it work for my family, you know, because I think the other context is my wife's a morning TV host. She does work in the studio. Her hours are the opposite of mine. She has the most scheduled job. You know, the show is on no matter what, 6 a.m. So I need that flexibility. I need to be able to take the kids to school, to run something over to the school if we forget, you know, pack a lunch, whatever it is. That flexibility is so valuable. And I think I've learned, especially as the kids get older and they're in more activities and we're taking a lacrosse practice or we're doing flag football or whatever it is, you need that flexibility. And so that's what I've really valued.
How old were your kids when you realized we don't need the au pair anymore and you became the au pair? Like, yeah.
You know, Sunny was 5. She was starting kindergarten. Story was 3. And you know, I don't regret the years where we had a lot more hands-on childcare because at the time, I didn't see a different way. Yeah, and I was so deep in it at work and really proud of what I was doing. You know, I learned also, it's something my wife often points out. We learned so much from our nannies. We learned so much about how to raise these kids and how to be a family and all of that. So I don't regret it, but I do look back at that moment where our au pair decided she wanted to head home and I didn't need a replacement. You know, I didn't need to figure out a solution anymore. And look, it's never as simple as I'm making it out to be, right? You know, yes, we still have needs for babysitters sometimes. You know, there was a couple weeks ago, Jimmy Kimmel was not canceled. He was suspended at ABC, and my life kind of became Jimmy Kimmel for a week. So like in those moments when I'm on air all the time, I do need backup. I do need babysitting help. But to be able to be more hands-on and to be the quote unquote fun dad and to be able to embrace that was a gift.
Wait, so are you the fun dad? I gotta hear.
Aren't we all? Aren't we all the fun dads?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, much to our wives' chagrin, I think.
Yeah.
You know,
like,
I don't know if this happens with you guys, like a lot of times, but for context, I think I said this in our note. My daughter's 7 in second grade. My son is 5 in kindergarten.
Yeah.
Ollie's got a 13-year-old. And a lot of, like, literally this happened the other day where, what was it? It was like a candy or something. Oh, no, I remember. We were at the park. You ever at the park and you see like these, you know, toys that are like left out, like secondhand.
Yeah.
And, you know, my wife is like, we have too much stuff. You know, and I'm like, oh, I know they had that thing. The like, do you remember when we were kids, the little boxing things you hit and you know, they punch each other, and my daughter wanted it. And I knew, or I had a feeling that my wife would not want to bring this home. And she's always saying to me, you know, I'm sick of you saying, go ask mom. And then I'm the one who has to say no. You're saying yes to everything. So I did this thing where I go, well, I'm saying no. But, you know, if mom says yes, we can bring it home. But I was like, yeah, this is cool. Bring it home. So I like kind of did like you know, I'm saying no. And so then I let her say yes. And the kids were like, mom said we could have it. And I was like, sure. Do you ever find
I'm going to try that.
Yeah. What's the dynamic with, you know, discipline, being on the same page, like too much candy, got to go to bed? What's the story?
I'm at both an advantage and a disadvantage because with my wife's schedule, she's at work in the morning and then she's at home in the afternoon, which is, you know, really special time family wise. But, you know, by 8 p.m., she's got to go to bed because she's getting up super early. So I end up either, you know, mostly time doing mornings and bedtime. So I'm kind of the beginning and the end of the day. And, you know, for better and for worse, often for worse, that's when the expectations are set. That's when the behavior is set. That's when the discipline. So I am too lenient. I am too easygoing. I know that. I don't think I'll ever change, but I know it's a problem. That counts for something, right? That should count for something. But it's a never ending conversation, right? It's just an ongoing dialogue. Same with all the toys and all the junk. I am willing to donate. I am willing to give things away so that I can bring in more. And so that is now that I know where the donation bins are, now I know the best places to bring, toys and clothes we've grown out of. I'm able to bring more in, because that's what I don't know. To me, I'm looking over at one of the Barbie dream houses that my daughter says she's grown out of. I don't believe her. So it's still sitting here hoping that she'll come back to it. But I know at some point, that it's going. I'm still glad my son's really into Hot Wheels. He'll go 3 months where he won't want to play, and then he'll be obsessed for 3 months. And so that makes me happy.
I'm glad you
to
brought
keep
up
that
the
cycle
Hot
going.
Wheels because we saw with your summer project. Can you talk about
Yes.
your Hot Wheels summer project? And
Yeah, this was my daughter's first summer going to sleepaway camp. 6.5 weeks, only 2 phone calls, only 1 visit. But we got through it. And most importantly, she loved it. And, that's all that matters. She absolutely loved it. And so, it was basically a, story summer. It was my, a summer with only 1 kid. Really interesting to experience life with only 1 kid, by the way, for a number of weeks. And I just let him take over the entire living room with all of our Hot Wheels tracks, like from every room of the house, every little Hot Wheels thing that was stored in the back of a closet. And, we bought some new ones, of course, and tried to assemble a whole city out of Hot Wheels. And it was perfect because knowing it was going to end, like knowing we'd have to put it away was part of the appeal, actually, having a deadline, knowing it's not going to last forever. I suppose I'm not trying to get all deep, but that's sort of a metaphor for parenting. If you know about that time limit and that time constraint, you're going to appreciate it more in the moment. And I think that's definitely where I'm at now.
did Sunny get to experience the Hot Wheels, or was it gone before she came home?
No, I think we put it away before she was home. But she saw the pictures, and the truth is, she wanted that playmat back for her gymnastics. Even though we're out in the burbs, it's amazing how they will fill and outgrow any space. So, they still fight over every little corner.
Right. Fill the space you've got.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious about your Hot Wheels setup. Like you said, tracks. Like, how extensive are we talking about here? Like, do you have the thing that makes them shoot out? Because to be honest, we have it in the garage, but it's on its way out. There will be. We're at the era where he's 13. He's playing. Great, he's playing GTA. It's over. He's not.
I mean, Story's already asking for Fortnite, and I do let him have a little bit of access to Roblox. I always struggle with this because when I was 5, my grandpa got me my first computer, and everything in my life that's good I owe to the computer. Learning how to code, building websites, getting into journalism. It all started when I was 5. So I don't want to deny him or Sonny those opportunities. But I'm also terrified of what's on those sites. So, we can go back to that at some point. But
well, yeah, I am curious because you're a journalist, a media journalist, and we talk about here sometimes Ollie's son, for instance, just got a phone. He's he's 13, 8th grade. He's got his first phone, and this is it.
Wait till 8. So you did it. You actually did wait till 8. Hallelujah.
Yeah, and it's what's really hilarious is he doesn't even bring the phone with him everywhere because we won't let him have like all kinds of apps. Like as soon as he got the phone, he goes, "Can I have Snapchat?" My wife said no so fast. No. It was like amazing. And so he's less interested in it because he doesn't have all the apps. He doesn't have social media, but he doesn't have YouTube on there too. But it just became practical of like, I need to be able to call you. I can't have you search for a landline. And every other, he was definitely last on the list to get one for sure.
I mean, we over-indexed or whatever the word is on iPads early on. And I excuse it a little bit by remembering it was 2019 and 2020, especially during COVID. I excuse it by remembering that my wife and I are both in TV, so yes, we're going to have TV on in the house. It's actually gotten harder to have CNN on nowadays because now they can read the banners on the screen. And so all the horrors of the world are in the kitchen. And so we have less screen time in that way now than we did. But, we over-indexed on iPads and then, I emphasized games instead of, and ABCA and all the whatever. over videos. But what we realized were the videos were the problem. The YouTube was the problem. We've cut back on iPads now. They can have them in the morning because we're getting ready for school, and I have a little bit of work to do in the mornings, but not after school. And that's why now after school is the Hot Wheels time. It's the gymnastics time. It's the play out in the front yard and be bored and find something to do time. And I'm so glad that we put that into effect, because I think what we're seeing with kids is if they can default to a screen, they will. You have to take that default away, change the default, and then they'll be very happy. You just have to be in control of those defaults. I read somewhere somebody saying, in this YouTube or screen era, parents have to parent 110% all the time. And if you don't parent 110%, the screens will win. And that helped me coalesce in my head what's going on. That yes, you do have to work harder. No, you shouldn't bitch about it. It's just part of the job. But you don't want the screens to win. So I feel all of that. At the same time, I also feel what I said about learning how to code when I was 5 and learning how to build web pages, wanting that balance. And that balance is just a daily conversation, I guess, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I think we're all in the same age range. I'm an elder millennial.
Yeah.
I think Ollie's a young Gen X. I think you're maybe somewhere in between, Brian. And
Yeah, I'm just turned 40. Yeah.
okay. So, all right. So I also am at 40. So, all right, 85.
Yep, 85.
All right.
85.
So when we were,
And it was a great time. Like, it was Nickelodeon. Like, we grew up with this what I would consider really high quality media for kids. Maybe it was a little bit, there's elements of junk food there, but
Sure.
I didn't have any worry. I don't think my mom worried about what I was watching on cable in the 90s. So I want a version of that for them. I want them to be able to veg out sometimes. They're kids.
Well, I'll say the funny thing about that is because like we always talk about how, I mean, my parents were a little bit lax to the point where like I probably saw some content that I shouldn't have seen at that age, right? And I think like we try to keep them away. Like my kids we're like, you can do whatever you want on the PBS Kids app, and they're on the Netflix like children's account, and we know it's like a little bit safer. I think the flip side of that is, to your point, like they're getting more screen time than we did because just the access, right? Like if we had, I always call it like we had the downstairs computer, and that was it. And you could go be on the
Right.
downstairs computer, but otherwise, if you were out of the house, you had to wait until later when you were home and someone else wasn't on it. Now you're at a restaurant, you're in the car, you're at an event, you need any downtime, and they're at all upset or, just don't know what to do with themselves and you can't focus, you can give them that pacifier, that digital pacifier. And that just wasn't an option. And so I do think, like you're saying, like boredom is good. And I think it's almost on us to push through that pain of them yelling at us and be like,
Yes.
be bored, go
Yes.
do something, invent something.
Yes. I think it's getting easier as my kids get older, actually. I don't dread the car rides the way I might have in the past. And maybe that's just because I've changed the default. And also, by the way, I will let them have the Nintendo Switch in the car once in a while. It's not, I'm not trying to be militant about it. But I don't want it to be the default. And, I think the other part of that for me is figuring out games, questions, activities, just fun ways to pass the time. Now I like to have them quiz me, try to stump me, ask me a question I can't answer, or give me a math problem I can't solve. And then I can flip it back on them. And the time in the car, and like, because we're in the burbs, like we're driving all the time, and they moan and groan about it. But I think that makes the trips a lot easier, a lot better. And often the reason the reason I'm fun dad is I'm the one that always wants to go to a water park or go to some bouncy castle place or the trampoline park, all that stuff. And I know I didn't do that when I was their age. I know that I'm probably way overstimulating them with way too many activities. But they also seem so much smarter than me than I was as a kid. Do y'all experience that? Like there's so much more going on upstairs than I'm pretty sure there was for me or my brothers. So if they show me they're advancing and learning, then yes, I do want to go to the trampoline park.
Where are you in the birth order of your?
I am the oldest boy. I'm the oldest of 3 boys.
Okay. I I'm the oldest. I have two younger sisters. Ollie, you're only child, right?
One and done.
Yeah.
I am an only child, and I am the father of an only
Yeah.
child.
So you're a weirdo. He's our only child representative. What was your I mean, I'm curious, like, we talk about sometimes we dive into like, the model we had. I mean, not this isn't a talk about your dad's pod, but it comes up. I mean, I'm curious, like, what was your model of like what a father is, both when you were a kid and what you thought a father was, and then like as you became a dad, who did you kind of look to as, oh, that's the kind of dad I want to be?
I wish I had more memories. Um, I I was my dad died when I was 15 years old, and many of my memories of him are of that period, meaning, heart attack and hospital and then another heart attack and, you know, um, how my mom held us together. And I think I was always closer to my mom. When I think about my dad, I think first about his like mahogany truck. He was an appliance repairman, and he would commute. We lived in the suburbs, about an hour outside DC. He would commute to DC every day and work on people's kitchens. And that was he was my mom was then the accountant for the business, so it was like really like a perfect family business. Um, and I think I probably thought we were middle class when we weren't quite middle class, or we weren't middle class. I've pieced it together now, kind of looking backward about how much he was sacrificing, about how hard he was working. And I was the kid who would wait by the door for him to get home, and then excitedly tell him all the news that happened that day. And what I remember is that he would play along, even though he listened to it all in the car. Even though he had an hour or an hour and a half on the ride home listening to WTOP, and he knew all the news, right? But that playing along. I also remember, wrestling, going to the pool, stuff like that. What I think I took away from those memories is like the tactile nature of parenting, right? Like the physicality of it, the picking up story and fighting with him, wrestling with him, like getting his energy out. And I feel that in a really, really real way now that I didn't a few years ago, as he gets older and he has a lot more energy. So that definitely stands out. And then I think the other piece is health. Like my dad was, he wasn't overweight the way I am, but he smoked, he drank, he had a picture a very red face, I don't know, high blood pressure. I don't know what it all was, but I know he wasn't healthy. I know that he wasn't taking care of himself the way he could have. And I now, think about my kids as I get older and as I try to lose weight and as I've stopped drinking, and I've thought more as I get, look, he was 45, I think. So as I get close to the age that he passed, I feel much more of a responsibility to be here for my kids, in all those ways. Did I just bring the combo way heavy down? I'm sorry if so.
Nope, it almost always happens, and I think
does it? Okay, yeah,
beautiful
good.
part of this show is like literally we have a lot of really interesting, cool dads on, but like the only qualification is that you have children, and so like we inevitably talk about everything, the fun, the sad, the good, the bad, the ugly, and I think it's kind of what parenting is, right? Like
Yeah.
it can be really hard and really amazing and fun, and I'm thank you for going there. Ollie and I are not strangers to talking about our childhood trauma, but also laughing about it and as our coping mechanism. So I'm curious, like, so you're off. You're sober now.
Yeah, I decided. Yeah, I stopped. Like, I haven't talked about it anywhere, so you got a scoop.
Ooh.
But it was like I needed a change. Yeah, and it's helped kid wise because I'm now to the extent that I might have been hungover in the morning before. Now I'm not.
Have you tried like the athletics? They're not a sponsor, but I'm just curious.
Oh, yeah, the non-alcoholic beer.
Yeah,
Yes, and
yeah,
I do. I have them downstairs in the fridge.
because
Yeah.
I love athletics, and I gotta tell you, like I was the guy who always hated the taste of alcohol, and then by the time I developed, like I was like, ooh, I actually really like the taste of beer. I was like, it is not good for you, and why am I
Right.
drinking so much of it? And thankfully, technology has progressed. We're like, it tastes pretty good, because when we were
Yes.
kids, it was like O'Doul's, and O'Doul's was a punchline, and it
Right.
was terrible. And now
Right.
it's like there are so many NA options that it's been so great for my social life because we're out with other families and parents all the time, and the
Yeah.
ability to just be like, because I feel like I need that. Like even now, I'm just constantly drinking something.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
yeah.
I do look back and wonder to what degree I was using the alcohol to, kind of get, I would tell myself I was using it to get through the day, right? Not day, but like at the end of the day, the get through bedtime, right? I've earned this beer, all that kind of stuff that you might let into your head. And I find that without it, I'm much more in tune with how I'm actually feeling. I don't have a way to numb the anxiety or other stress that I feel. I just have to feel it. And that's been actually really good. I think it makes me better at doing bedtime, for example. It definitely makes me more present. We are trying to reorganize all the shelves of books upstairs. So, holiday books, New York City books, goodnight books. Like we're in the middle. We're like day 3 of a book reorganization, and like doing that in the evening for half an hour with the kids is now fun as opposed to tolerable. And so I credit the non-alcoholic brews with that. Yes, I credit the cutting out the beer with that for that.
So I wanted to go back to something. You said your dad passed away when you were 15
Yeah,
and you were the oldest. Do you feel
yeah.
like you maybe had an opportunity to maybe kind of take the reins a little bit with your dad being gone and being the oldest? Like, and did that kind of give you maybe even a head start on being a dad to a degree, even though, I'm sure your siblings are a little bit older than your kids
Right.
are
That's
now?
that's really interesting. I mean, Jason was 13, Kevin was 10. I'm sure that to some degree I did fill in a little bit, but I don't remember picking up that role. I definitely know that it brought us closer. It brought the brothers closer, but I don't think there was a anyone to fill that void for a long time. I have found that in my career, I have picked up mentors who have become father figures, repeatedly, and I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that that probably happens, on a deep level. But yeah, I don't know. I look back at that moment. So I was 15. He had taken me to George W. Bush's inauguration because I'm a big politics nerd, and we lived an hour from D.C. and I really wanted to go to the inauguration. So even though he probably shouldn't have, and even though it probably wasn't great at the time, like he took me to D.C. We had that experience. He passed away a week later. It was so important to my mom that we get through that and not let it destroy us, frankly. And so I'm always amazed by how she led us through it. But I think what happened, when I think, we all tell a story about our history, right? Like our past. The story I tell about myself is at school, they paid a little more attention to me. They knew I was the kid whose dad had just died. And, a counselor put me into some camp or some leadership program. And then from that, then I'm in the student government. And from that, then I'm in this and that. And I see a very direct connection between my dad passing away and these, stepping up in school and being more of a leader and thinking, having greater it sounds stupid, but like having greater ambitions, like, kind of ruling the school as opposed to just like quietly, anonymously getting by, if that makes sense. And so I look back at his death and I see that really as the dominoes that started to fall as a result, and impossible to know like what it would have been otherwise.
That's fascinating because so often, the story can go the other way, right? Where
Right.
it's like that was
Right.
the traumatic event that, led to, this negative behavior
Right.
and so I'm curious, like, do you feel like you were on a different academic or just social path prior and you felt like, all right, I
I
really,
did. Yeah, I do. I do. I think I was much more of a loner. I think I was much more of a follower. I just didn't really have an identity. And look, it's out of sympathy initially that they try to rope you in. They say you should go to this over the summer. You should do that. It wasn't a grief camp. It was like a leadership camp, but it had the same effect. So I think it was one of those one thing led to another situations. I also think that when you're growing up and you're getting into your 20s and you don't have a dad to call, you also, at least in my case, you know, I want to obviously make my mom proud. I want to show that I can bring in an income. I can steady myself. I'm not going to have to rely on her. I'm not going to have to need this and that. I think it also created more motivation in a way, or more of a push, to get myself, situated and to have my own life, in ways that, of course, later, cause family tension, because then you're not coming home as often and all the usual stories. But moving to New York City, getting a job at the New York Times, being able to stand up on my own 2 feet, and if we're being honest, like if we're gonna like go to the therapy version of this, not having to worry as much about money as my dad, becomes the real quest, right, over time.
I'm so curious about that because, I think that this is something that we all, as parents, as fathers, deal with is like, wanting to protect our kids from some of the maybe baggage or traumas or just stuff that we wish we
Yeah,
had. And
yeah,
that's certainly one of them, right? Like, I think in my case, it's less the money piece and more of like I want less fighting in our house. I want more
yeah.
stability. So
Yes,
we're all trying to
yes, me
maybe
too.
recreate this thing that maybe we didn't have. But then, do
Yeah,
you ever worry about like, well, how am I, teaching them, maybe lessons about whether it's finance or generosity or just those things.
resiliency.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure, that you
yeah,
had just by nature of your circumstances, and then
yeah.
creates like a whole other set of challenges. Do you guys talk about that, you and Jamie, or?
We're going to go talk about it right after this podcast now. That's a good
All right.
conversation starter. I mean, the other phrase that I was thinking about when you were saying that was conflict management. I feel like I learned conflict management by trying to separate my mom and dad a couple times, when they were fighting. Um, there was a moment where he moved out. There was a moment where there was another woman. There was a lot of moments of anguished phone calls and some loud yelling matches. And when you experience those when you're what, I guess 10, 11, 13, 14 years old, they stick with you. And I don't know about you guys. For me, if Jamie and I are having like a 2 out of 10 fight, because they probably never get above 4 out of 10, but a 2 out of 10 can sound like a 10 out of 10 if that's all you've ever heard. And for my kids, like that, I immediately go into the de-escalate, show the kids that we're going to be together forever, show the kids that I'm not my dad in that way. Because for them, the 2 out of 10 is an earthquake or whatever.
A hundred. Ollie, I don't. Do you really fight?
Yeah, no, I mean it doesn't really go that way, and it's funny when I think about it. It's so true. Like just when you're like, oh, my kid will never see. When I think about what is it that I do that seems to be a priority as a dad, I do think about kind of the trauma I had with my dad, I think, being verbally abusive, and also dealing with my mom, who's schizophrenic, and honestly, cultural issues too. They were both immigrants from Bangladesh, and there's just a lot of layers there, especially then growing up in America in the '80s, and I think about me being like fun dad, you know what I mean, and never being someone who I have the kind of classic immigrant story of like, oh, you got an A minus, why not an A? It's very, very, very indicative and fighting to not pursue a career in medicine, even if you have a C minus in chemistry. So I think about like how I'm just like, no, just try your hardest in school. And that's kind of like maybe the North Star based on what I didn't have
Yeah.
as a kid. But, you did bring up, do we fight? And that doesn't really happen. I mean, it's not really, we don't really process our disagreements that way. That being said, it ain't all sunshine and rainbows. And what was interesting, and this happened recently, not too long ago, like when something is amiss, and it's not like elevated voices or sometimes tears, but nothing super crazy. Not the 7 or 8 out of 10s maybe I had seen or experienced. My son will still be like, what's wrong? Like, it's like, I mean, the subtlest. We're talking like subtext out of a Harold Pinter play,
Uh,
and he's just like, oh, whoa, what's going on? I'm like, so there's no escaping it. Any distress is detected in a family unit. Just even when you're like, no, no, we're gonna keep things chill. We can never operate chill 24/7. So yeah.
That's so funny too, because Brian, the way you're saying like a 2 out of 10 is a 10 for them, like, I think we have that too, where I'm like, oh, we barely fight, and like when we do, it's certainly not as bad as it was for my parents. But to your point, like that's all they know, so that is a 10 for them. And then it's funny because I'm actually like, as we're talking about this, I'm like, oh, I probably think my parents didn't think it was that bad because the stories I would hear about my grandparents, my grandpa would be like come home from work at like 7 in the morning and be like, I want a scotch, like, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, so yeah, that's way worse, he's like coming home from like an overnight shift, just drinking immediately.
Well, the other thing about 2 out of 10 is if it happens 2 days in a row, if it happens 3 days in a row, right? If there's a little skirmish here and there, they start to think there's something bigger happening. And your kids too. Like they're old enough to know the word divorce. They're old enough to know all of these concepts. I'm sure they know concepts I don't even know they know yet. And so I'm just very attuned to it now. And I also think there's a flip side to the coming home at 7 in the morning after an overnight shift. And it's especially true having us lived through the COVID years and having lived in the city. Having so much time together can be a thing too, right? And now my kids are in school all day. Now I can't wait to go pick them up from school. But like the sheer number of hours we're together sometimes also breeds conflict in a way that we're lucky to have those hours together, but still.
It's what, very true. I remember I spent many hours, many years playing with action figures alone in my room.
Right. I keep wondering when that phase is going to start for my kids, even though I don't want it to, but I assume it's going to, right?
They're too entertained. It's like I had so nothing to do, and this is even like pre-AOL. I had the Ghostbusters house, I was fortunate enough to have some toys, and that's where everybody hung out, I don't care if you're a Ninja Turtle, you're a Ghostbuster, you're a Garfield the cat, that was their hang. And then I was just, kind of putting them in different positions.
Right.
You brought up something it's like a new question I have, and obviously it depends if whoever we have on had kids at the time, but how were the COVID years good or bad? And I say that because we had a great time during COVID. Like, Heath did not have a lot of screen stuff initially. We didn't even he got a video game machine because of COVID. We're like, finally we give in.
Yeah.
And we got him an old Wii. Like, it's like giving someone a record player when everyone else has a freaking iPod or whatever.
Right.
But we found ourselves doing a lot, and it's just the three of us, and we were quite bonded. So that's what I'm floating to you guys. COVID years, good or bad? Thumbs up or thumbs down?
I think over time, as the memories of all of the death fade, like if we step back and say it was the worst year in our history, but as the memories of that fade, and as I forget about the refrigerated trucks outside the hospital, for example, what I will remember in 20 years, is going outside and breathing the fresh air and, yes, staying socially distant from others, but, having that really pure time with the kids. Like what I'll remember in 20 years is that, are those really, really beautiful moments, where you did have that connection. And also now the kids kind of know about it a little bit, right? And that's fascinating too. Trying to explain the news to them is a whole new video game to me. I'm trying to beat every level, trying to tell them just enough about the news at any given time. But they lived through the biggest story in the world already. So what is there more to tell?
Totally. I mean, I remember, my parents telling me about Kennedy assassination, where they were. We had 9/11, and I think COVID is certainly going to be one of those, events for them that is just formative. Let's talk a little bit about You mentioned 20 years from now. Something we like to ask dads, who come on here is, when your kids are older and they're talking about you, maybe, bringing someone home from college, or just, they're living on their own for the first time, and they're talking about, oh, well, my dad's like this. How do you want your kids to describe you? The type of person you are when they're adults. Who's
Yeah.
your dad?
Ooh. Do you know that Netflix movie Yes Day?
Yeah, it sounds familiar.
It's a movie where the parents are challenged to just always say yes all day. For one day, they have to say yes to everything their kids want, and of course, it goes off the rails. Blah blah blah. I don't want to actually literally be remembered as like the yes dad, but and I know all the problems with that, and we can get the child psychologist on here to tell us. But like, I do want to be remembered for being the one that would go on adventures, that would pile them into the car on a day where there's no school and drive off somewhere and have a blast. I want to be, I don't want to be constantly saying no. I don't want them to remember me that way. Once in a while, if my son really wants to get under my skin, he'll say, "Daddy, you love to work. You're always working." And ticks me off because it's not true. It also ticks me off because I don't want him to have that impression of me, right? It was definitely more true 5 years ago. It's definitely true on certain days and in certain moments. I'm not going to deny it. I love it. Some of the stories I cover are really distressing, but a lot of the other ones are really interesting and fascinating, and I love it. And I want them to appreciate that, but I don't want them to think of me as someone whose head was always buried in my phone. And now that they're old enough to tell me to put down the phone, I'm grateful every time they call me out for it, and get me to be more present. But I want them to recognize that most of the time I'm on my phone, it's related to them. It's either doing my job to pay their bills, or it's buying them new cleats for soccer, or it's booking tickets for X, Y, or Z. Pretty frequently for you kids. It's booking your play dates. I don't know. I'm just rambling. Do any of those answers make sense?
No. That's what this is. This is a place to ramble about being.
I like it. Yeah, I like having a place to ramble. That's the benefit. Also, you asked at first about about stories sneaking onto TV. That's the huge benefit for me of being able to, when Kimmel happens, when something really bad happens, something really good happens, to be able to just run downstairs to be on air, but not be away for 3 hours, has made all the difference in the world. And I hope they remember that and recognize that. Even when I was wearing my orange TV makeup, I was still outside throwing the ball with them in between live shots. And that sounds really weird, but it's actually great.
Makeup for when you're home? Who's doing your makeup?
I do. Yeah, I know. I smear it on. I smear it on myself. Here's the thing about TV makeup. So in the kind of post-COVID era, if you're on TV on this format, using a podcast app or Zoom, then no, makeup does not help. It only hurts, makes you look artificial. But with my home studio, it has real lights, it has a real camera, it has a real monitor. It's built to look like a real TV setup, so makeup does help a lot with those.
Otherwise, you'd look kind of like a ghost or something.
And just every little red spot, whatever happens to be going on that day, will pop up. Every time my daughter, she's my 8-year-old, she will say, "Daddy, you look better today," and it says I'm wearing my makeup. And she's like a dagger in my heart. Like, "Daddy, you look better. You look good today." And that's when I remember I need to take my makeup off. But it is really helpful. During COVID, my wife had a home studio for New York One, and the kids snuck on TV a couple times. But they were young enough; they didn't know what they were doing, and it was cute. Now they're old enough where it's still cute, but it's like borderline a problem. So I'm trying to figure out a solution so it doesn't happen again. It was funny once. It earned me a spot on your podcast, so I'm grateful. But I have to, I don't know if there's a lock situation. I don't want to lock the door, but there's got to be a way. I'll figure it out.
What is advice you would give to yourself before you had kids as a veteran dad now?
Oh my gosh. I don't want to say the first thing that came to my head because it's a little bit depressing. The first thing that came to my head I would say to stop drinking earlier. But that's depressing, so I don't want to say that. and lots of nights where anyway, what would I say? What would you all say? I'm stalling to think about an answer.
I was home with my kid a lot when he was like one. My TV gig went away, and I was like, I don't know, I was just at home, and I just recently like swapped out computers, and I found some old footage of him and me like screenshotting each other. We did these little videos together, and I would go back and say, "You are doing the best thing in the world right now." I remember people said that. They were like, "This is so important," but I had no idea. I thought I was
Right.
failing, and I was like, this wasn't part of a plan, and I didn't know what I was doing. My kids won. I didn't have siblings. I had no vision of me one day being a dad. But I swear to you, Brian, and Neil, I'll share you the videos. I looked at it and I'm like, man, I'm good at this. Like, I was great. Like it happens. It comes. It works out. It'll work out. I need to tell this again to myself now. I feel like I'm a little too lax in it. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to work out. That's what I would say to me back in 2013.
I don't want to tell myself anything. I don't want to time travel back. So perhaps this is a very unfair question, but I think what we're really saying is, what would you tell other dads who are maybe about to enter the dadosphere?
I would say, if you can afford it, buy the thing. Like, don't let your wife talk you out of it. If you want to buy another frisbee, buy another frisbee. If you're at the boardwalk and the kids want to go get a boogie board, get the boogie board. I mean, all within reason, of course, but have the experience. Don't bankrupt yourself, but like have the experience. Don't assume you're going to have it a week or a year from now. Go ahead and do it. I've also had to, and this will get heavy again. I've had to also get okay and get excited about having 2 kids as opposed to more. I mentioned that we did IVF. We still have a bunch of little, what do we even call them? Little Stelters on ice somewhere that the bill still comes for, every year. And for some reason, I can't quit paying for them. I still pay it even though I shouldn't. But in the last year, I've come a long way in accepting and embracing 2 as opposed to 3 or more. Partly what makes that harder is living the town we happen to live in. Some of our closest friends are these really big families, and I look at those dads of 5 and 6 kids, and there's a part of me that is so jealous. And then there are obviously lots of other parts of me that are not, but I can't help but wonder what it's like. I can't help but wonder what it would be like. My wife always used to say she wanted 5 kids. And then between IVF and all the rest and getting older and all the rest, she got happy with 2 a lot faster than I did. But being thankful for what you do have, coming to embrace the situation you're in as opposed to wanting more, is something that I guess I'm admitting I'm still working through, although I think I've come a long way. So it's not advice for other dads. Never mind, scrap it, edit it from the podcast cut.
No, we, as any of our listeners know, we always say we're going to edit and then we leave it in because it's like more authentic. Literally, we had a guy interrupt another podcast and I left it in because I thought it was funny.
I mean, what the thing about more than 2 kids is really about, it's not about kids, it's about me. It's about getting old and dying. That's what it really is about.
Yeah.
And so being able to do the real honest work of like, what's that really about? What's really going on in your head? I think that's helpful to do.
So, as you know, we also have 2, and we're flirting with 3, I guess, maybe. I mean, we're also in Brooklyn, and so we know a lot of families with 1, we know a lot of people with 1, and like, we're crazy that we have more than 1 because we're in the city. We know some with 3. Usually they're very wealthy, 3 or more if they manage to stay in the city and they've got more than 2 kids. But for some reason, I don't know if it was the 90s or what, I'm one of 3, you're one of 3. It felt like everybody had 3, besides Ollie's family. But like, it wasn't a big deal. I have a lot of friends from growing up. We're one of four, from New Jersey. And I think when we were talking about it, it was also something we had to kind of process because my wife said, the way you know if you're done, she had read this, was you picture your Thanksgiving, when your kids are grown. And I was like, oh my God, I could picture three, but the thing was, we didn't want to have to do the work of raising a third. And so we're like, I'd love to have three adult children, but I don't
Right.
want to have to
Right.
parent three kids. And so here we are.
Yeah, I would love to have three like 6 and 8 year old. I mean that yes. For me it is that, and this is living in the suburbs. A couple families right next to us now have newborns, and that's a good reality check for me. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah, yeah. Brian, you've been so generous with your time. We're going to ask two more things of you. We're going to do a segment we call brag about your kids, and then we're going to go into the lightning round. I'll
Oh,
take you through the lightning round. So all right, here's how brag about your kids works. Speaking of more than one kid, you get 30 seconds, and you can use it however you like. You can brag about one kid for 30 seconds. You could split it evenly, 15 and 15. So, we've had dads before, get down to 5 seconds and then they have to say something really great about their other kid or kids. So I'm going to put 30 seconds on the clock and you, Brian Stelter, please, ready, brag about your kids.
Sonny and Sawyer is so much smarter than I imagined, and none of it's thanks to me. I don't know where it came from, and it's a mystery to me what these teachers are always talking about how great they are and how superb they are. I don't know where they get it from. But I am proud to be class dad. I was class dad for Sonny for 2 years, and when I had to break her little heart and tell her that I was going to be class dad for Story this year, she took it a lot better than I expected. So to me, that was a relief. I would brag about her for doing that all day. And by the way, to all the dads listening, join your parent, teacher, whatever it's called. I'm on the board now. I'm the only dad in a room full of moms. There should be more dads on these boards.
You know what? I'm going to let you. We're going to let you. We're going to give you an exemption.
Take
because
that
of,
extra 4 seconds for the plug.
PSA.
Yes.
We're gonna not take money away from the Boys and Girls Club like Nate Bargatze did.
I am pro DEI when it comes to men serving on the boards of the PTA or whatever your school calls it.
Can I tell you? I am. My wife is the president of our PTA, and I am
Wow.
the reluctant president of our school board of District 14.
Are you really?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I've already had a few run-ins, and I was like, oh, this isn't what I signed up for. I want drama-free. Ollie, I'll
That's
fill you in.
incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good for you. You're doing the work.
Oh, here we are. Yeah. So, all right, you bragged about your kids. You told us about your life. You are the world's greatest dad. Are you ready for the world's greatest dad lightning round?
Yes, probably. Maybe.
All right, Brian, here we go. Parenting advice in 5 words or less.
Is that the question?
Yes, parenting advice in 5 words or less. You have 5 words to give us parenting advice.
I already used 4 words.
We'll start you over.
Oh my God. It's so much easier to say 500 words than it is 5.
I know, for a guy who does CNN TV, I'm surprised I got you gun shy.
Read another book before bedtime.
Wow, you got
There's
the
5
5
words.
That's a true journalist. You know your word counts. Pick a superpower: super strength or super speed.
Super strength.
One book every dad should read.
I have no idea. Do dads have time to read? Is there like a deep, thoughtful answer that I should give to this?
Actually, I'd be coming up with snake eyes myself. I'm not much of a reader.
I've got to have some deep thought on this, but I don't have one. I hope you'll edit this out for real. What book should every dad read? Invite me back and I'll have an answer someday.
Oh, I thought that was in your answer. All right, fine. Fair enough. Best dad snack.
Ooh. I'm eating a lot of the kids' Rice Krispie treats lately, and I do eat goldfish like every day because of the kids too.
Funniest sound your kids make?
One of my kids is now old enough they're snoring, and for some reason the snoring is just, it sounds like an 80-year-old. So I struggle to suppress the laughter.
Yacht rock or indie folk?
Indie folk.
Cheesesteak or hoagie?
Oh shit, this is like a Philly question. I don't want to screw it up. I think it's a cheesesteak.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually what you prefer, I think. That's how I look at it.
I mean, when I go to Wawa, it's a hoagie. Okay, all right.
Sure. All right, fair enough. Iced coffee or Red Bull?
Iced coffee.
Last thing your kid said that made you laugh?
I hate you.
That made you laugh?
Yes.
Wow.
Because it
You
was
are a great
delivered
dad.
so hollowly. Like, he so clearly didn't even bother meaning to say it. Yeah. It's such bullshit.
That was amazing. Who's the stricter parent, you or Jamie?
Jamie.
What's your dad uniform off camera / off air?
A lot of hoodies, Aviator Nation hoodie, and usually sweatpants no matter what time of year.
I'm Aviator Nation hoodie, though. That's impressive. Kids TV show you actually like?
The kids are really into Bunked. It's an old Disney Channel show that they watch constantly, and I am starting to fall for it, although I'm trying really hard not to.
Greatest dad of all time?
I mean, me. Is this a trick question? This is the world's greatest dad.
There you go. That's the lightning round answer we need.
There it is. Good.
Favorite movie to watch with your kids?
There's so many. Inside Out. Inside Out because of all the emotions.
An excellent movie. And Brian, our last question. The best part about being a dad?
Seeing a little bit of yourself reflected back. Seeing a lot of your wife reflected back. And seeing these new parts and pieces and aspects of them you don't even know where they came from, but knowing that they can grow up to be better and bigger and happier and all of that than you, that's the best part.
That is the secret sauce we are here for. Brian Stelter, you are the world's greatest dad.
Hey, thank you so much. You've got my mailing address for that plaque. Or no, I think I said metal. I'd like it to be around my neck. I'd like to wear it to school pickup.
Oh man, he's got expensive taste too because he wears Aviator Nation hoodies. So we can't really pull any punches
with
on
holes
this one.
in them. But thank you for having me. This was a blast.
Thank you for doing it. Thank you for being the world's greatest dad. Thank you for all the advice, the wisdom, the laughs. Let's do it again. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Next time I will bring a book. I'll bring a book suggestion.